Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Here's to quitting. Quitting the couch for a quick run. Quitting the snooze button for a morning workout. Quitting giving up after 2 weeks. You see, staying committed to your fitness goals isn't easy. But with Apple Watch, you don't have to do it alone. Because Apple Watch gives you real-time motivation, plus advanced metrics that track all your workouts, so you can stick to your New Year's fitness resolutions. And once and for all, quit quitting with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come into America.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. Well, New Year's Eve is 3 days away. New Year's Day is 4 days away. 2026 is on its way. And we got another great show for you today. Dr. Oz is going to be talking to us about all the great things he's doing. The EPA Administrator, Lee Zeldin, will be on with us today. Dr. Peter Michalos, how we live longer. Bonnie Brady, Saving Long Island. Steve Forbes on the economy. Lynn Shaw on Saving Our Kids. J.T. Fox on the world economy. And let's start off with Secretary Doug Burgum on all the good things that are happening with saving Americans money in the new year. Well, with us today is Secretary Doug Burgum. Well, Mr. Secretary, I hope you had a great Christmas. You got great accomplishments last week on this new program that you and the President have announced.
Yes, well, and of course, President Trump's leadership has been incredible. And when you look back at the last year and what's been accomplished, whether it's securing the border, whether it's fighting crime, whether it's a shrinking government, whether it's all the things that he's doing, and of course, it's all showing up. We got record capital investment coming in to the country. Interest rates are coming down. Taxes are coming down on January 1. All of that's happening. And, of course, you saw it in the news last week that economic growth in the third quarter, 4.2%, the most it's been in a long, long time. Everybody said, President Trump's economic policies, all the economists said, we're going to have bad outcomes from that. And what do we have? We've got the greatest growth we've had. And when we look to 2026, he talks about an age of abundance, and we're certainly set up to have a blockbuster of the year next year in terms of economic growth. And at the core of all that is energy policy. President Trump has turned around 180 degrees the policies of the prior administration, which was focused on heavily subsidizing intermittent, unreliable sources of energy that often required foreign suppliers, like all these offshore wind projects require. And when we've got affordable alternatives right here, and I know that people, around the country, if you're living in a part of the country where you're worried about the price of gas at the pump or the price of your electrical bill, you need to talk to the politicians and the policymakers, because those are the folks that are setting the prices. The states that are following President Trump's lead, have gas prices that are 50% lower at the pump. You've also got electric prices in states like my home state of North Dakota is 1/3 of what the price is in New England. And that's all because of policies. And so if people, whether it's in New York or in California, want lower energy prices, one thing you have to do is follow President Trump's lead, build infrastructure. Let's use the amazing resources we have here in this country for reliable, affordable energy, and everybody can prosper even more, because we're getting 4.2% growth out of this country in that report last week, but it's not even. Not every state is growing as fast as the states that have followed President Trump's policies. So I'd say we're set up for a great 2026.
I know we talked last week on the. You guys did a great job pausing the windmills in the ocean that were doing a lot of damage, and plus creating a security risk. And the cost of that electricity has been phenomenal, and probably even more than people think, because those things don't last forever. Those blades fall off at the end of 5 or 10 years. Is that the highest cost of electricity going forward versus what is the cost of small modular reactors versus windmills in the desert or wherever else? What is the future of America?
Well, offshore wind is the most expensive, and it's the most disruptive to the environment of these sources. And then if you go follow on from that, then you've got other sources. Nuclear, we can get the cost down in nuclear, but that could be 5-6 years away before we start reaching a scale with a small modular nuclear. We got the resource we have right now that's low cost and quick and accessible is natural gas. You can use it for heating your home. You can use it for producing electricity. You can turn it into fertilizer. It's an amazing resource. Again, the policies in this country, let's just say you've got gases in some parts of our country is a couple of bucks, depending on supply. Other places maybe call it $5. Then we put it on a ship and we ship it to Europe for $10. But in New England, it's $20, and all we need is pipelines from Pennsylvania and New England. But if it's because whether it's oil in California that's being shipped into California by boat because they've blocked pipelines, or whether it's dirty foreign heating oil that's being offloaded in Boston because they blocked natural gas pipelines, and I say they, I mean politicians and the regulators that are doing that. I mean, if we had infrastructure around the country like we have in other states, then every state would have the same low prices because we've got such an abundant set of resources in our country. So, politicians and their policies are driving pricing, and President Trump's
and I know, Mr. Secretary, we've talked. Me and you have talked about this before. I know we have a ton of crude oil up in gas and minerals up in Alaska.
And Alaska, and we're just getting tapped into that. President Trump, one of his priority policies is getting a 800-mile natural gas pipeline from the North Slope down to the Anchorage area on this, where we've got open. Anchorage is warm, it never freezes. The ice, you can move ships in and out of there 12 months a year. It's 8 days from Anchorage to Tokyo, and it's like 24 days from the Middle East to Tokyo. We have an opportunity to sell energy to our friends and allies so they can stop buying from our adversaries. And we know that Iran was funding the war against Israel, funding 24 terror groups with oil sales. Russia's funding its war against Ukraine and Eastern Europe with oil sales. Venezuela funding their terror activities with oil sales. I mean, if the United States, being energy dominant, if we can sell energy to all of these folks, that's one of the ways that President Trump is ending the wars right now around the country. It's what his energy diplomacy is, peace diplomacy. And so when we're energy abundant, energy dominant in the U.S., it's prosperity at home and it's peace abroad.
We're making a lot of progress, and I feel good going into 2026. Well,
we all should feel good, and we mean about the opportunities that are there, and particularly, I mean, everybody in New England ought to feel like, wow, we're right next door to Pennsylvania, which has got they have 20% of the natural gas in the United States right now is coming out of Pennsylvania, and we're heating homes in Europe. You can get natural gas from Pennsylvania cheaper in Europe when they're in the middle of a war with Russia than you can next door in New England. That is criminal in some ways for the people that live in New England. They should all have access to low-cost, affordable, reliable U.S. clean energy, and it's for sitting there right next door. And just one little pipeline would heat more homes and drive more electricity than all 5 of those wind farms combined. And it would do it 7 by 24 as opposed to when only the wind was blowing. I mean, there's just no comparison in terms of price or reliability. And President Trump's common sense is coming through over and over again with the policies that he's driving.
Mr. Secretary, we hope we all have a happy new year, and God bless you and your family. And
blessings to you, John. Thanks for all you do and your family, and thanks for your philanthropy and everything you do to support so many great causes. And greetings to Rita and the whole gang. Always great to be with you.
Thank you so much.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us this morning is Administrator of the EPA for the entire country. We have Lee Zeldin. Well, you guys are doing a tremendous job bringing down the price of energy to the consumer in the United States. And you tell me what you're most proud of and what your next steps are.
Americans should feel very confident with the way things are heading in this country. We saw it this past week with the GDP numbers that came out. And this president, he's been locked in all year. He's had his cabinet working together where there's overlap. You see on energy policy where he has me as Administrator of EPA working closely with the Secretary of Interior, Doug Burgum, the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, and others on his team. The chemistry has been fantastic. At EPA, we inherited a mess. There was a lot of Biden-era regulations that were put in place in 2023 and 2024 seeking to suffocate out of existence entire sectors of our energy economy. And the president wants us to be right-sizing that as fast as possible, and that's why there's so much deregulation that is going on right now at EPA. We actually, when finalized, it'll amount to more deregulation in 1 year than entire federal governments in the past have done across all agencies, across entire presidencies, and that's just at one agency at the EPA. When you take dereg, permitting reform, the collaboration with these other agencies, working with investors, pouring tens of billions, hundreds of billions into new projects across the country, it all adds up into something very special when you look to the future that's ahead.
You're all over the country. You're in Alaska. I saw you're the West Coast. You're the East Coast. You're all over. What do you see from people? Do you see that they're thankful that it looks like finally we have direction? I mean, do they feel more confidence?
A lot of groundbreaking. A lot of people working on construction jobs. People who are working at a power plant that was slated to go under, but the president saved it. I got to tell you, it's happening mostly in red states. It's something that I point out that I would say that anyone in the blue states where you're not seeing the same level of investment coming in your own state, it's not a coincidence. You have to look at your own state policies and whether or not you have the best business climate possible, whether or not you are welcoming and encouraging that investment or you're pushing it away. But I got to tell you, where I see the most amount of excitement is where I see those shovels going into the ground, where I see people working. And there's a lot of that right now in America. So, yes, I've been to all 50 states since confirmation earlier in 2025. I've been to a lot of states more than once. I think it's important to be out of Washington as much as possible to get this experience firsthand on the ground. And what I'm seeing, it's not just optimism coming from one person here talking to you on the phone. I'm saying, from what I could tell, when those shovels are going in the ground, everyone in that community is feeling good.
Is the biggest problem state California, trying to bring the energy prices down in California because of all the problems they have?
Yeah, California and New York are probably the two biggest ones. In California, the president's made some really great moves this year. First thought is ending the California electric vehicle mandate. There's a story this week in Politico that outlines the strategy that was successfully implemented through EPA working with the president. I remember announcing at the Oval Office towards the beginning of the year, sending 3 Biden EPA waivers that had been given in California to send it to Congress, give Congress the opportunity to review them under the Congressional Review Act, which Congress then did, and then passed resolutions disapproving those waivers, which the president signed, ending California's electric vehicle mandate. The tailpipe emissions that were coming out of California, the standards, were getting adopted by a whole bunch of other states elsewhere around the country, and it was raising vehicle costs. It was limiting consumer choice. And it's just one of so many examples where the president is just punching through whatever type of resistance and bad policies and bad proposals are that he sees in front of him at the state level, or maybe coming from Democrats in Congress to do the right thing. I'll say in New York, I've been a big advocate for Constitution Pipeline to deliver natural gas into New England. The thing that makes me the saddest about it is that New York should be tapping into our own natural gas supplies rather than having a pipeline going through our state to deliver natural gas to New England. Banning gas hookups on new construction in New York, bad idea. They have set dates in law on climate policy that politicians in Albany know they will not be able to meet. And in trying to meet it somewhat, they're causing a lot of economic pain for people who can at least afford it. Listen, I'd rather see a race to first whenever New York is involved in it. I'm biased as a New Yorker, but unfortunately the way California and New York are battling in the most highest profile way is to lead the country in out-migration, and it's sad to watch.
Let's hope 2026 is a healthy year for all our friends and all in our country, and let's hope everybody becomes prosperous again in 2026.
I wish absolutely the same, and John, same for you, the family, everyone there, and wishing all your listeners an amazing 2026.
God bless you, and God bless America, and like I said, 2026 is going to be a great year.
Take care, John.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Well, Dr. Peter Michalos, another year is gone. We want to live to 100. Give us some advice.
Well, a very important topic is staying healthy in winter, and that includes car safety and our health safety. And one of the biggest things is that when it's cold outside, we want to stay warm and dress warm, and everybody's different. We all have different layers of protection underneath our skin that can keep us warm, and some people, don't necessarily need a coat. But the way we get sick when we go outside is the dry, cold air dries out our mucous membranes and our sinuses, and that's why viruses and bacteria can more readily enter. The same reason why, in addition to super cold and dry weather, we get sick more. That's why we run humidifiers, especially for children. Having a hygrometer that tells you percent humidity, keeping the humidity at least 40% in the room, you tend to get sick less, and that's why long airplane rides, people also with the dry, desiccated air, because they don't want humidity in planes, because humidity causes rust causes metal fatigue and structural failure. That's why the carbon fiber lanes like the Dreamliner, people actually get less sick, and that's been documented. So of course, your limbs also, where we lose the further away from the heart, the colder it gets. That's why our head, I don't have any hair on top of my head. That's why sometimes I just wear a hat and I feel just fine. But gloves are very important, especially in little kids. Avoid frostbite. Warm socks that are made out of wool or cotton are very important. And the idea is not to get wet, because when our body is wet and our skin is wet, that water evaporates and that cools us down even more. And it's important to avoid things like alcohol and caffeine that dehydrate you before you go out and try to shovel any snow, because that can be dangerous, especially as we get older or have any heart disease, because it raises our blood pressure, which puts stress on the heart. And protecting ourselves against things like pneumonia. If you're over 65, having a pneumonia vaccine is a very good idea. And then we move on to things like I just talked about, car safety. When you buy tires, nobody ever looks at the label. You have to look for the sign A for A traction and A temperature. That's the rating. You want good traction and you want an all-weather tire. And preferably, if you can buy a tire that has Kevlar lining, which is the same stuff they use in bulletproof vests, your tire is more resistant to puncturing. Also, keep your tire pressures even, because when you slam on your brakes, if your tire pressure isn't even, your car could slide or spin one way or the other. The same reason we rotate tires, because if they're a different tread or uneven tread and you slam the brakes, you can go and lose control. The same reason why you're not supposed to really use cruise control on the highway when it's snowing, icy, or rain, because you can sometimes lose control. Check your windshield wipers, because you got to see clearly when you drive. Having fresh wipers, a quick way to clean your wipers is just take some alcohol with a paper towel and clean them off, and it gets rid of the grime. Having a first aid kit in your car can be very, very helpful. And also, I keep a small fire extinguisher in my back seat, because a small fire sometimes can be a problem. Keeping your gas tank at least half full all the time helps to balance the weight in the car. And the reason I never fill more than 3/4 on the highway, because if you get into an accident and the gas tank is violated anyway, you're less likely to spill out gas. So having a full tank of gas sometimes on the highway is not necessarily the best thing, but having it just slightly below being full. Also, people I see getting into their car in snow after a snowstorm, and they start the car, but you're supposed to check your tailpipe, because if it's clogged with snow, guess what? The carbon dioxide backs into your car, and that can also kill you. Also, the annual inspection of your brakes, very important, because you put your family in your car, your children, your grandchildren. You want to be safe. Keep your radiator with antifreeze and also non-freeze liquid for your washer fluids. And we've talked about a lot about the importance of protecting our lungs from the particles, the microplastics. That's why changing your car cabin filter is something twice a year, and you have to ask for it, because it won't be normally done. And for house safety, check your carbon monoxide detectors, especially if you have fireplace in the car, your smoke and fire detectors, that they're all working. And we have to protect from heart disease, because the number one day of heart attacks in the whole United States happens to be Christmas Day, followed by the next day, December 26th, and New Year's Day. That's because we tend to overeat, overindulgence, a lot of stress, because we meet up sometimes with relatives we rather not. And we sometimes find ourselves in situations where we don't have access to medical care, because doctors, hospitals are on vacation, emergency rooms are backed up. So that's very important to stay hydrated, don't overeat, avoid very excess fatty foods. And also, people travel to relatives' houses, they forget to take their medications with them, and getting replacements is not always so easy. So these are just some of the health tips to keep us alive, our car safety, our home safety. Avoiding slip and falls. One of the biggest causes of death is breaking your hip as we get older. So I buy little grippers that you can wrap over your shoes that have little spikes that actually prevent you from falling and slipping. And, a lot of these suggestions, you just keep trying to stay on top of things so you can live long and prosper. And a lot of it is just maintenance. 20% of our destiny is our genes. 80% is how we take care of them. So keep listening for more health tips on how to live long and prosper.
Well, Dr. Mihalos, and the other discussion we had, you have to really, really dress warm when it's cold outside. Otherwise, you get sick, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because especially when you get wet, because the water, when it evaporates, it cools you down even more. And sometimes wearing a glove, and the one time I do like masks is, believe it or not, when you're wearing a mask, you don't lose as much humidity out of your sinuses and in your face, and that actually sometimes can keep you even warmer than a coat, because breathing in that freezing air fills up your lungs and your chest with the cold air. So sometimes a good a scarf around your face is sometimes better than a coat or a jacket.
Dr. Peter Mihalos, Happy New Year. May New Year be healthy for all of us and all our listeners. And thank you for keeping our listeners alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for always getting the truth out on the Cats Roundtable. And please, everyone, for the New Year's resolution, schedule your annual physical exam and blood work.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Bonnie Brady, and she is celebrating this Christmas week. They halted the windmills on Long Island, which was a big thing that she was working on. And congratulations, Bonnie Brady, and give us a report on Secretary Burgum's report that they halted the windmills for 90 days, and somebody has to prove that they're safe to continue them. Bonnie, tell us how you feel about it.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, a huge shout out to Secretary Burgum and the administration and obviously President Trump for doing this 90-day pause. And I'm hoping that it becomes a permanent pause because this is an issue that we have known about, the issues regarding national security and national defense, since at least 2016. They have been long-standing since they first started attempting to build offshore wind in Narragansett Bay. I believe it was in 2006 or 2008. And it was an issue then because, honestly, if you are radar and you have to see through a steel forest of offshore wind turbines, your radar won't work. You've heard me before talk about marine radar looking like spirograph. It's not just for when you're out on a boat. It has huge implications for not only if you're on a plane or if you are a national security and looking at something heading towards you, or
and Bonnie,
for rather. Yes, sir.
But the secretary has said to me, "You've seen what's going on in Ukraine and in Russia.
Right.
The way these windmills are situated, if some foreign entity, shot 200 drones right through where the windmills are in the ocean." They'll make it through and create a lot of damage without radar picking them up.
Absolutely, because what happens inside is you can't see inside the offshore wind field to determine what is a real target and what is a false target. And it's the same reason, John, why Sweden, the country, stopped 12 offshore wind projects, said no to all of them last November, purely because it would affect their national security and their response time to address an incoming whatever. It would drop the time which they could react from 2 minutes to 60 seconds. And so they said absolutely not. And obviously they're close to the entire Russia and Ukraine thing, and they don't want to fool around. And frankly, we shouldn't be fooling around. There's too many bad hombres out there at this point that want to do this country harm. And we've got, 3 airports right in the metropolitan area. You've got Newark, you've got JFK, you've got LaGuardia. We know on Long Island we've got Islip. The cumulative effect of these 5 projects in construction and the one that's actually supposedly working at South Fork on Cox's Ledge is a serious deal. We have certain types of radar that are used by Homeland Security and the military right here in Riverhead in Massachusetts that will be affected, and that could have catastrophic effects to major cities up and down the Atlantic.
The other thing the secretary has said is that the cost of electricity could rise anywhere from 5 times to 10 times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers just today. I mean, if you look at the Block Island wind farm, which was like the pilot project, oh, look, pretty windmills, their cost for their energy is $244 a megawatt hour with a 2.5% increase yearly. South Fork, $140 a megawatt hour. Revolution, $99. Sunrise Wind, $146, and Empire, $155.
So people are getting screwed.
Well, they will be getting screwed, and very shortly if these things aren't stopped immediately, and people aren't aware of that. You've got laws put in place. People are, cutting off pipelines, cutting off reliable and 24/7 forms of base load power, which I listened to the secretary on a news report say a couple of days ago. Instead, they're going at something that costs 4 to 6 times more, plus you have to still have base load on top of it. The costs are going to be astronomical. It's not just a possible national defense, national security disaster. It's also an economic disaster.
Well, the good news is it saves your fishermen if the project is shut down, and it saves my whales.
The projects need to be shut down, and they need to get all that garbage out of the ocean. I do know, apparently, because the cables have a lot of copper in them, they're worth money to a scrapper, and I'm pretty sure we can repurpose steel in the ocean that's been pounded into the ocean floor. But absolutely, without this effort by the administration, the commercial fishing industry as it exists on the Atlantic, providing wild-caught, sustainable seafood to millions of Americans, would theoretically be completely harmed to the point where our ports, I mean, we've got thousands of jobs up and down the coast, tourism jobs that depend on it through the summer. That's the whole thing. Everyone's talking about, oh, what about these jobs for windmills? Most of them are foreign jobs that work on those boats. Meanwhile, what about our jobs? Don't our lives as Americans providing food for the nation matter? We are extremely elated at what the Secretary has done and thrilled to death that President Trump has been so forthright about putting an end to this charade.
Bonnie Brady, thank you for bringing us up to date, and thank you for everything you've done, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thank you so much, John, for the opportunity. Have a very happy New Year.
You are listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever missed a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment.
At the stroke of midnight.
With us today is Dr. Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz, tell me, what bothered you the most over the last few months of things that are going on in our country?
Well, my New Year's resolution is to crush fraud, waste, and abuse. And folks have been following it from afar, but you all need to just stop what you're doing for a second and understand how critical this is. The fraud around our social safety net is destroying the programs for our most vulnerable. So if you care about those at the dawn of life, our children, if you care about those at the twilight of life, our older folks who might be in need, if you care about folks who are just living in the shadows, people struggling, need a hand up, they can't get it because there's so much money being stolen out of the system that it's impacting on our nation's safety net. So I run Medicaid and Medicare for the president, and I deal with these issues firsthand. And when people work out scams like they did in Minnesota, where you have political patronage, which means politicians, elected officials, not wanting to enforce the law because they think they can get something out of it, that's a problem. So what happened in Minnesota, just to get everyone on the same page, is they were going above and beyond in order to provide really good social services to whoever happened to wander by, including, by the way, immigrants coming from Somalia. And these folks began to realize that we are suckers, that the people in Minnesota who are supposed to be watching the hen house weren't doing that at all. And if they wanted to get a little extra something from the social safety net, they could easily take advantage of them. And I'll give you an example. The Minnesotans would say, you know what, and we do this in New York, by the way, too. If you need transportation to the hospital and you don't have family to take you, we'll pay for it. If you need a place to stay when you get out of the hospital because you don't have a good place to stay and it's easier to get you to one of our hotel rooms, we'll do that too. All that sounds great, right? However, those are also soft programs. So the folks, for example, Somalians, and 90% of the indicted people are Somalians, but they're literally people from other states. People from Philadelphia realized what a con artist opportunity there was in Minnesota because no one was watching. So they began to participate as well. They would sign up online to provide services that they never actually delivered. So they took some of these programs, like the one I mentioned for transportation was, or housing was, these things are supposed to be $2 million programs. They were, $100 million programs. The autism program I mentioned, supposed to be $3 million, it's $400 million. How did that happen? Because they started paying parents to lie that their kids were autistic. Then they began to lie about providing non-existing services to non-existing autistic kids. And who suffers? The parents with real autistic kids, because these programs are now in dire distress. So we have reached out. I have reached out to the governor with a letter. And now I think that what happened there is reprehensible because I think Governor Walz was running for vice president, not running the state. They were nervous about offending the Somalian population, which votes overwhelmingly for the Democrats. They were offended about being called racist because they're taking tough action. The racism is not taking action because you're worried about someone's skin color. Do what's right for the country. And so we've demanded that they give us weekly updates of what they're going to do to track these bad actors down. They have to provide us a game plan by New Year's, and we're going to freeze enrollment for all the high-risk providers, all the doctors and people providing services, many of whom are not doctors, people pretending to provide autism services. We're not going to allow that anymore. And that's just in Minnesota. Imagine what's happening in New York when we know we have got home health care scams. We've got all kinds of people taking advantage of these softer systems. These are make-believe services that we provide that are softer, like transportation and housing, that we're not equipped. So when you ask Health and Human Services to also be HUD, Housing Urban Development, when you're asking us to be the Department of Transportation, when you're asking us to be the Department of Education, money gets stolen.
Dr. Oz, we started a few weeks ago, a month ago, and the problem was $1 billion. And I heard rumors the last few days that the problem could be as much as $9 billion. And then one more question I'd like to answer. Has this problem been spread to other Democratic states?
Yeah, it's spreading throughout the country. And these are massive amounts of fraud that are happening because it's politically expedient to happen. You sign people up on these programs, they become your allies, they become your voters. So why would you want to cut down? It's the same argument for the problem we had at the border for immigration. Why would the Biden administration allow that to happen? What American government would allow the invasion from a foreign country with no attention to the border? There's an argued reason anyway. And we think the same thing is happening with social services. You create these very luxurious benefits. You don't have strong rules. People take advantage of them. Like in Minnesota, it was a feeding frenzy. All of a sudden, everybody in the Somalian community knew this was a scam. Listen, they came from a country where it was normal to scam the system. So they weren't used to, general Minnesotan, Scandinavian, hard-nosed, do the right thing people. They're just culturally different. So it was just an opportunity for them to make money. There wasn't probably an offensive issue where they came from, but it is an offensive issue is here. But you can't assume that in this country. You have to actually, at this point, just man the store, clean up the mess, and that's why we've been tough on Minnesota. We're going to be tough on other communities as well. This is not just about Somalians. We have a massive fraud of home health care in New York. We have a massive fraud in Los Angeles in hospice. We have more durable medical equipment suppliers. These are guys that sell wheelchairs and knee braces. We have more of them selling that junk in South Florida than there are McDonald's. In fact, we've got 5 times more than we have McDonald's. And, John, these are foreign governments getting involved in this. The money that the Somalians took got shipped back to Somalia and other parts of Africa. We know that. The money in South Florida goes back to Cuba. The money in L.A. is run by gangsters. We shut down a $15 billion multinational crime ring that was primarily based in Russia. How do I know that? Because when the Department of Justice goes after these guys, they flee back to Russia. If they're going back to Russia, or the Cubans are running back to Cuba, then you have to at least suspect the governments are involved.
And they're probably protected by the Russian government or the Cuban government.
Oh, we know that. We can't extradite them. We know that. It's easier to open a durable medical equipment supplying company than a bank account, which is why we're working with Scott Bessent and Treasury, because I'm better off shutting it down in the banking system than actually going after the perpetrators. That's the other thing. As much as we want to put the bad guys in jail, my main goal is to not let the money leave the business. Don't let the money leave the building. American taxpayer money trusted to Medicaid and Medicare should not be stolen by other countries and their criminal organizations. And the weaponization of these crimes is not small-time players. You don't steal billions of dollars as a mom-and-pop shop. These are weaponized multinational criminal syndicates who know how to game the system. That's why when you have weaklings, as existed with Waltz in Minnesota, they get slapped around, and the system gets abused, and no one's there to actually protect the problem.
Dr. Mehmet Oz, thank you, and have a Merry Christmas for you and your family. And I hope in the new year our economy is going to do great, and it's going to be the best new year, the best 2026 our country's ever had.
We're going to fix the problems.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
The Cats Roundtable.
We have with us J.T. Fox, an international businessman, entrepreneur, specializing in AI and mergers and acquisitions and real estate. And he has a new book, and I have one chapter in it. Well, JT, what is it? What's going on?
Well, first of all, it's the best chapter. It's called Billionaire versus Millionaire Thinking, because I think one thing that I've learned being around you and seeing you at work and seeing you and do deals and handle problems, You have to think differently, and you have to simplify. And I think that's one of the themes that in 2026, as people probably said last year, this year is going to be my year. This one's going to be different. If you take a look at it, there was a lot of uncertainty this year and a lot of things that people wanted to get done and did not get done.
Well, I mean, there's a big concern over AI. At what point is it useful and what point is it hurtful? Have you figured that out yet?
Well, obviously, it is helpful. Everything you do can hurt if you use it the wrong way, whether it's food or whether it's relationships. And AI just makes life easier. And I think, we talk about years and resolution. AI will either amplify you or replace you. So number one, I think in 2026, learn about AI. Think about, hey, if I have a job, how can AI better myself, make myself more useful? Because if not, it's going to replace you. If someone can hire an AI sort of kind of robot or what we call an AI employee, and it can work 24/7, 365 days a year, does not complain, does not take days off, does not take Christmas off. You and I both did not take Christmas off. We were live on the show. Eventually, the whole show might just be whole AI, so learn about it. And if you learn about it, then you will be useful because at the end of the day, humans have to run the AI. So that would be my first recommendation for 2026. And number two, find out what your biggest weakness is. Like, what is one thing that is hurting you from becoming a better person, a better entrepreneur, and says, you know what, I'm going to go all in and turn that weakness into that strength. Because people keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, and that's a definition of insanity. So take that one thing, I'm going to improve it, whether it's not, I'm going to quit smoking, or, I'm not good at sales, or, I'm going to become a person of value. I'm going to learn something new, because how you learn is how you earn. And I think the last one is be appreciative. And go back to some of the people. You had such a big impact on my life, John, just with your teachings and your show and just being around there. And I think sometimes we forget to tell the people that we love or the people that have been useful to our life, you know what, thank you for doing that. And sometimes it's too late. You hear so many tragedies happen, and I wish I could have, I would have. So I think a lot more gratitude in 2026 and being more appreciative. Because sometimes the things you appreciate about the people the most, they will stop doing if you don't show them the appreciation. And sometimes it's nice to have recommendation. And that's why I wrote the book, which became a global bestseller, Billionaire versus Millionaire Thinking, to honor you and what you do for so many people. I think we all know, had you run for mayor, you probably would have won. But, God put you on this earth to be a very successful entrepreneur and to inspire the masses with your show and all the other businesses you have there. And you have a giant heart that's as big as the ratings of that radio show you have.
JT Fox, where are you spending your New Year's?
You know what? Interestingly enough, while everybody's thinking about partying and doing this, I'm hunkering down. Did the same thing as you in Christmas. How can I add more value? How can I become better? Everyone has this notion of like, oh, when January 5th starts, then I'll get started again. No, it starts now. This is when it starts now. Even if you're spending time with your family, wake up a couple hours early, think, what am I going to do this year? What am I going to do that's different? And so I'm going to spend it. Because I don't really like going out on January 1st and paying 5 times, 10 times more than what the price was. So I'm just going to hunker down and listen to your show and find ways that...
Me and Margot are usually, the last few years, at midnight, we are in the studio broadcasting to the whole world, and maybe you'll call in at that point, too.
Anytime for you.
JT, have a happy New Year evening, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank and A or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/feesinfo. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secured Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
Say hello to the all-new Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do so much more for you. Need tickets to see your favorite artist? Craving your comfort restaurant? Just sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. It learns your style, anticipates what's next, and makes it happen across Echo, Fire TV, and more. Learn more at amazon.com/new Alexa.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. Buying parts for your car? You'll know that will it work feeling. But on eBay, buying parts is different. eBay's free returns means if it doesn't fit, or if it isn't what you expected, you just print a label, drop it off, and get your refund fast. No haggling, no stress, and at least 30 days to return any eligible item. Millions of parts, free returns. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable.
That's great, it starts with an earthquake, birds and snakes, an airplane, and Lenny Bruce is not afraid.
And with us today is Steve Forbes to give us his economic view for the new year. Well, Steve, what the heck do you think?
Well, the ingredients are there for a good year. The big, beautiful bill, the depreciation, all the write-offs there will kick in. Some other goodies will kick in as well. I see some turbulence. The turbulence coming, one from the Federal Reserve, which if we get another quarter of 4% plus growth, they'll start yapping about overheating economy. So I think they're going to keep interest rates jacked up too high too long. The dollar is weak, so that may cause problems internationally.
But Steve,
there are a lot of black swans out there. But
Chairman Powell is going to get his butt kicked in the first quarter of 26.
Yes, but then the new Fed head has got to really clean out the Federal Reserve, because the whole institution and most of the governors and the presidents of these regional banks still believe in the so-called Phillips curve, which says there's a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So that's going to be a big battle, and I think a good battle, because I think
I put my money on Trump.
Going to win.
I put my money on Trump.
Win. The good guys are going to win, and ultimately we'll get a more sensible monetary regime. And who knows what our friends, I shouldn't say friends, who knows what black swans are swirling overseas. But I think the Supreme Court is going to throw out the tariffs, the ones that the president enacted through executive orders. That'll cause turbulence, but I don't think it's going to hurt the economy at all. In fact, maybe the opposite. So the key thing is that we keep going with the deregulation, and I hope they go for another tax cut. And, here's one thing I have on my Christmas wish list, or not wish list, we already had Christmas. But for the new year, I hope the Treasury Department dusts off an idea that was back in the 1990s, John, and that is to decree that there's a legal case for it, that capital gains must be adjusted for inflation. So when you sell an asset, whether it's a building or a stock, you don't pay capital gains tax on fake gains. I think that would be a huge boost for the economy. So that's my wish for the new year.
Well, that's a good thing. If it's fake gains, you shouldn't pay the tax on it.
That's right. And if people have held an asset, especially housing, be great for the housing market. You've held a house for 10, 20, 30 years. A lot of that gain is just inflation, not a real gain, and yet you have to pay tax on it, and the tax rate is too high. So another thing on the wish list is reducing the capital gains levy.
Does that mean if you bought a house 30 years ago for $100,000 and now you sold it for $1 million, they expect you to pay capital gains tax on or gains tax on $1 million?
Yes, they do. Yep, for $900,000. So it's a real downer. It hurts investment, keeps people from realizing gains. A lot of people own assets, stocks and the like, that they'd love to
sell, realize the gain, and move the proceeds elsewhere.
Well, when I used to do
money
business
to work elsewhere.
30 years ago, I did some business in Argentina, and the inflation rate was bad. So before you figure out your annual taxes, you deduct the amount of inflation during the year.
That sounds good. I like
So
that.
in other words, if you made $100,000 and the inflation was 4%, then you only really made $96,000.
That sounds like a good deal. Why pay tax on fake gains? All it is a big fat tax that hurts the economy. We know high tax rates hurt the economy. This is a backdoor way of taxing capital, which hurts economic growth.
Well, it makes common sense. You deduct the amount of inflation, whatever the inflation was that the government talks about, deduct it from the gross amount of your income.
And you should pay tax on real gains, real resource gains, not the junk they do now, which ends up hurting all of us because it hurts the economy. We have less prosperity.
I agree with you 100%. Well, Steve Forbes, I look forward to getting together more in 2026 and having a happy and healthy new year and a $60,000 Dow Jones by December 31. Because it's my opinion, it's a great year. Thank you so much for coming on.
And let's top that off with 8,000 or 10,000 on the S&P 500.
I'll take that. I'll take 8,000 for sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Lynn Shaw. She's with Lynn's Warriors. And Lynn, what is today's subject?
Today, John, we are going to talk about TikTok and why this new deal that kind of mentioning the business end of it, but nobody's really talking about how this affects children and families. The first thing I want to say is most children ages 8 to 17 use 3 platforms. They use Snap, they use YouTube, and they use TikTok. Now, we have about close to 200 million Americans on a daily basis utilizing, that's more than half the country, utilizing this TikTok, and a large percentage children. So there's 3 things I want to cover, and these are the 3 points. I want the majority American control of the American version of TikTok. We're going to go over that. Why we're avoiding this national ban we kept hearing about under the Biden administration and the early days of the Trump administration, and ongoing questions about algorithms and ownership and influence. So here's what happened. On December 18th, TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance signed this binding agreement with American and international investors led by Oracle and Silver Lake and MGX to form this new U.S. joint venture, because the whole thing under the Biden administration was, national security threat. We can't, what they're doing, China, they're infiltrating. But, John, they never spoke about, okay, national security threat. But what about the harms to our kids? We have numerous TikTok challenges where kids are eating Tide Pods and subway surfing and stealing Kia cars. That was a big one for a while. So nobody ever discussed that. So now we're waiting. President Trump takes office. He delayed this announcement of, again, American ownership, but tying it to a national security threat, not the kids again. And he put out 3 or 4 delays. Now, we finally come very quietly on December 18th to this agreement. And what it means, I say, nothing much has changed, because TikTok is still, ByteDance, they still have about a 20% ownership in TikTok in America, John. So what does this mean for kids? Because here's what's going on. Do you know in China, John, the kids, they are allowed 40 minutes a day on TikTok. The subject matters are educational or about their nation, about having pride, about manners, about all kinds of things. After 40 minutes, it completely shuts down.
And Australia just passed a new rule too.
No social media under 16. I mean, other countries are doing better than we are doing. But I say to you, why are we, this kowtowing, bending, to China when our children are being harmed? I want to tell you about some of the harms here that we know about that are very well documented, again, by these dangerous algorithms feeding our American kids getting them exposed to all kinds of things. But the research is showing us that the TikTok's feed can quickly push kids towards harmful content, including intense mental health topics, and we do have a youth mental health crisis in America, and distressing material because of the algorithms, which are amplifying these risky videos, faster than filters can even filter anything out. So I'm saying, why are we still allowing, we still have an ownership over about 21% from China. I thought America was going to own it. But here's the thing. The mental health impact is linked to so many increased anxiety, depression. This is for kids, disrupted sleep, negative effects on attention span. So when they go to school, they're falling asleep. Addiction. There's internet addiction, and they're addicted to TikTok. You don't like a video? What do? You swipe to the next. You keep going. Compulsive use. We've had kids who have beat their parents up because the parents took their device away because they said no more TikTok. So we have violence now because it encourages this endless scrolling. Again, that's fostering these addictive habits. So then what do we have? Exposure to inappropriate content. Reports and studies, we have so many of them, found that sexualized material, violent clips, explicit content can still reach accounts set up to mimic, under 13 users, despite any safety settings that TikTok claims you can, put on to shield your kids from anything. And remember, the kids are savvy. They know how to get around the guardrails, right? Cyberbullying and negative interactions. We have so much of this, people hide behind their screens. And we have, the users are facing high levels of harassment, again, harmful contents, which contribute to what? Lower self-esteem and distress. So we're attacking our kids' minds. So what do we want to do about all this? What we want to do about all this is, number one, talk to our kids. Number two, we have close to about 70% of U.S. teens saying they use TikTok on a daily basis and almost constantly. That's the key word. I don't know how they're eating, sleeping, and going to school if they're using TikTok almost constantly. So teen girls are reporting about 66 to 68% higher usage than teenage boys. They're at about a 59%. But here's what we want to do. What are we going to do? TikTok is not designed, including this new American version, that they're still working out. They're still working out the algorithms. Why aren't they prepared? They've had over a year to, at least under the Trump administration, to figure all this out before unleashing it, which tells me we're really not going to see many changes for child safety. Why isn't it designed on the American end?
When is all this supposed to happen?
John?
When is all this supposed to happen?
So this deal was December 18th, and it's supposed to all go into effect somewhere in January into early February. See, again, the details are always wishy-washy. We never get the actual what's really happening. And on December 18th, when this was launched, everybody I brought it up to that morning was like, I didn't hear about this. Where is this? This should be like a major media headline. Now, there were a few business reports about it. But again, John, it's like, we talk about the AI. There's a lot of good with that. The flip side, what about the safety for kids and families? Okay, now we have TikTok.
Well,
what about the safety for kids
Let's
and
me
families?
and you keep talking about it, and let's try to make all the senators and congressmen aware about it.
Lynn'sWarriors.org, community creates change. Thank you, John. We have to keep on this. We have to keep talking about it. Thank you for always covering these topics with us at The Warriors, and wishing you and your beautiful family and everybody a happy, happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and we'll talk in the new year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.